Good evening and welcome to Steve Wraith's True Crime Podcast. And tonight got a special guest. We've got Scott from Dark Justice. How are you, Scott?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Yourself?
Yeah, good, mate. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for joining us. And really just want to give an insight into what you do. I've been a big fan of your work since you were founded in October 2014. Anyone who doesn't know what Dark Justice is all about, you can visit the website, which is darkjustice.co.uk. Just taking info off your website, Scott. You're a two-man operation. You're based in Newcastle. And your job essentially is catching potential sex offenders who try to groom and meet children following sexual grooming. I think it's fantastic work that you do. As I say, I've been following you from the start. I've been a big supporter of you. What made you get into this, Scott, first and foremost?
There was a lot of factors with regards to what made us start, but we were watching, myself and Callum, the lad who were doing it, we were watching a BBC Newsnight piece, and it was about COP at the time, and it was with regards to a load of cases that was sent to them from Canada. And these cases had sat on their desk for ages and ages where nothing was done about them. And some of them were like teachers, doctors, people in position of power who had access to children. And that sort of like sparked something inside of us. And we sat down and agreed to set up a profile. We never even had a name at that point in time. There was no sort of Dark Justice, if you like. There was no name or anything behind it. It was just more of like an experiment to see how far a profile would go online and see what it was really like. And the first person we ever caught ended up being Roger Lee, which was one of the worst people we've caught over the almost 6 years we've been doing it.
Amazing, really, to think that something that you started off as an experiment has developed, as well as this has, Scott. And devising the way of doing it must have been difficult, because this isn't a game, and I think a lot of people, who go online, etc., and they can forget it's reality. You know what I mean? It's real life. You're dealing with people who are ill, sick-minded, who've got ill intentions with children mainly. How do you devise and set up what you're doing and do it legally? How did you work that out?
I mean, there was a few of the groups at the time. I think there was about 5 in the entire country at one point. I think we were like the 4th or 5th or something like that. And we just sat down and looked at the research on the law side of things to make sure that we did whatever we did correctly in a way that we wouldn't jeopardize a case or anything like that. Because the last thing we wanted to do was to, give fuel to the fire of this stigma that was already there, that these groups are doing bad stuff, like that. We don't know what we're doing. They don't understand the law and stuff. And that's where we came with our stance of, doing it the way that we do. And it did take a long time of research. We didn't have loads of money we could throw at solicitors and stuff like that there to be told this stuff. We had to go out and like literally learn this stuff ourselves, and that took a long time.
I'm going to say, yeah, I mean, people might be doing the impression you do this for money. You do this for free.
Yeah. We don't get paid. We don't get a wage for doing it. We have to work alongside doing this to pay for our life, sort of thing. We've been doing this. I mean, I've been doing it myself since I was like 23 years of age. I'm 29 now.
What goes into your average sting? How does it work? Can you take us through the workings of it?
Well, I mean, it's a tricky one, because it's like when people say average, it's like there's never no two stings the same. So there's a lot of planning that goes ahead into it. Trying to find out as much information as you can about the person who is turning up. Then you've got your safety checks, which are to, is this person who he says he is? Does this person have access to children directly? If so, that changes how we would act. Just many factors like that. Is this person known to the police already, and so on like that? Because what we do comes with a lot of power, if you like. I mean, and that's not to sound like we abuse this power, but it could be used in a way that's bad if you didn't do them safety checks.
Yeah, Exactly. I mean, reading your website, you know, again, people please go to it, darkjustice.co.uk. You know, it's interesting because in the About Us side of things, it explains when conducting our investigations, we never instigate any aspect. Instead, we set up a profile and wait for messages. When we receive a message, we reply, and within the first few messages, we tell them that the male, female is a child and underage. When talking to anyone, we always try to avoid sexually explicit conversation. We act young and uneducated on the subject, and we never encourage sexual chat or sexual behaviour. The people we talk to suggest a meeting, and at this point, we take over and suggest a place where we know we can control what's going on and where we'll be safe. When a person confirms that they are coming, and when our team spots them, we ring the police and report the crime. We then confront the person with cameras and ask them about their actions and intentions. As soon as they have been arrested, we go to the police station to make statements. If someone suggests a meeting after a chat online with our decoy and then doesn't show up for the meeting, our evidence is still handed into the police and investigated. Some people are skeptical about what we do and how we do it. We're not vigilantes who operate above the law. We're concerned citizens who work closely with the police to help effect change and keep our children safe. We will continue to work to catch these sexual predators who terrorise our children, and we'll do our best to bring awareness to the epidemic our children are facing online today. I mean, it's a strong, strong message and explains exactly what you do. It's got a very legal feel to it as well. It feels as if, you know, you're having to explain yourself to the authorities. That's how that comes across to me a little bit, Scott.
Well, that's exactly what it's meant to do. It's meant to have that factor because sadly, from doing this, our lives have been a target by the system from above. You know, and people like will think, you know, we just, you know, sort of like coming up with conspiracy theories and stuff like that. But you know, these people have came at us with high court judgments and stuff like that, you know, to shut us down and make us quiet. So everything that we do, we have to do it in a way that protects ourselves, but also ultimately protects the aim of the organization, which is to catch these people and bring awareness. So that hence why we always say we will work closely with the police. It doesn't mean that we're in a partnership with them or that they give us help or advice. It means like, you know, we're happy to take on board advice what police give us. We will take it on board and we will think about it, but that doesn't mean that we will implement everything that they tell us, because if we did, nothing would ever get done. Sort of thing like that. So I mean, it is kind of like a legal standing thing, but at the same time, it's like we've had to explain ourselves over and over again and sort of like denounce this name of being a vigilante.
As always, we'll get questions on our podcast, so I will, you know, interrupt what I'm saying just to take a few of the questions on board, Scott. Claire Brown says, do you find the general public to be a hindrance at times in the work that you do?
Yeah, I mean, there can be on certain situations. We would love if people who support what we do, if you see us actively with a sting, you know, we can't stop you from watching or anything like that, but we do ask you to just sort of like let us do what we need to do and get this person in handcuffs and in police custody where they belong, sort of thing. But we're only general public ourselves, so you know we can't really be going around telling people what they can and can't do, because you know we're examples of people who are doing something that the police tell us that we shouldn't do.
Fair enough. Good question, Claire. Thank you. If anyone's got questions, please fire them over. Danielle Lauder says, is there ever a worry that the person you confront may get violent to get away? And has that ever happened before?
Yeah, I mean, we're not worried about them getting violent. I mean, we're two lads who born and raised on council estates, so we've seen violence every day of our lives growing up and stuff like that. I mean, it's not something to be proud of, but you know, it's an example of British life on a council estate. Everyone's the same. We've all seen it, but we've been attacked by these people, bitten by them, you know, slammed in their cars, dragged down the street and stuff like that. But that doesn't worry us. What worries us more is the fact that these people could be meeting a real child instead of us. You know, so the actions that they do to us, what were they going to do when this real child turned up if they didn't get what they wanted, sort of thing? And that keeps us running.
You've touched on this a little bit with the vigilante side of things. Paul Oxley says, have you ever felt like giving these people a hiding? I mean, I suppose it's human nature to feel like that, but you've got to maintain your professionalism, haven't you?
I mean, yeah, I mean, for example, on our videos, I get more stick for calling these people sir than anything else, because I'm not angry with them. It's not that I'm not angry with them, it's that I don't show my anger on camera or anything like that. And that's because if these people ever go to trial and I've got to stand in front of 12 members of the public who are jury, I would prefer to be the person who's standing there calm, who called this person sir and showed respect, than the person who kicked off and hit them about a bit. But don't get us wrong, that like you say, it's human nature to want to use your male instinct of hurting these people. But, you know, that's not something that we can do. We have a justice system for a reason, and, you know, I'm too pretty to go to jail.
Graham Knox there. There's a few of these going to happen tonight because of my Newcastle United show. I actually persuades kids into his shops with oversized sweets. Would you look into them, please? We'll have one about Richard Kings earlier as well. Paul Oxley brings it back to sensible questions. He says, how many of these predators do you come across in a year?
It's not really sort of like a yearly thing, but if, like, on the website, they've got the statistics on there. So, like, on the main page, you'll see our statistics: 203 caught, like, I've been arrested so far. Well, 205, it needs updating. There's 2 more ads. 120 have been convicted so far. That again needs updating. So, like, a lot of people get confused by that, and they wonder, like, so if 203 have been arrested, how come only XYZ have been convicted? But the problem is the justice system is so slow. We can have a case where it can take, you know, a matter of months, or it can take a bit longer, or sometimes less than that, for it to get through the system, just because of a backlog.
Yeah, I mean, it's remarkable just to hear those statistics, and you think about you and the time and effort that you've put in, you know, without financial gain. Just, it's fantastic work that you do. Andrew Clifford says, great support to saving a child every time they apprehended someone, Andy. David Harrison says, do you ever become threatened or fear they will be armed and attack you? But well done on your work.
I mean, we're not so much worried about being attacked. I mean, we have been attacked, but, you know, the same goes for anything, really. You look at history, no one ever got changed by not going out there and fighting for what they believed in. You know, like, for example, women with their rights, minors with the strikes, stuff like that. It's the only way that we can get the change that we want is by going out there and fighting against the problem that we see.
Let's go through some of the closed cases. I mean, but first of all, who was the first person that you actually, you managed to snare and get a conviction for?
Roger Lee.
Right. Okay. Tell us about Roger Lee then.
So Roger Lee was like the first person we ever caught, and that was the experiment. You know, it was him, and then another male called John Rudd, and that was sort of like the experiment we set up, and that was from one profile. Roger Lee travelled from Basingstoke to Newcastle to meet a child following, like, extreme sexual grooming. I'm not going into too much detail, but you can imagine extreme. He turned up on the night time, and he slept in his car in winter on the quayside. Then the next day, we went down to confront him. He ran off and stuff like that. We were brand new at that time. We were unsure of certain stuff that we could do. But later on, when he went to court, stuff started coming out about his past and stuff, and that was the point there. That was the creation point of dark justice. So there was at the point of stinging him, there was a name, and then after that, it was sort of like that was just the experiment. It went to court, and it came out that in the 90s, he sexually abused a 12-year-old girl, got her pregnant. She had to have an abortion because of his actions. Then obviously, years later, he came online to meet what he thought was a girl, but got caught by us. So, in a way, him being the first case was also the case that created us and made us go on to catch all these other people, the other, 200 people.
It's interesting because, I mean, again, people get yourself on the website, darkjustice.co.uk. All of the closed cases are on there. And I've just clicked on the Roger Lee case, and Judge Sean Morris, what he said as he was sentenced, and said, "You were caught by internet vigilantes," which is the best way of describing them, who pretended to be a female, and you entered into a conversation with them on the internet. The most damning thing about this, of course, is that he was only sentenced to 2 years and 4 months in prison at Newcastle Crown Court. And I think this is probably the next question I'm going to ask you. Can you believe, after all of this time, how soft these sentences are for people like that committing these type of crimes against kids?
Oh, it's it's like a rabbit hole and a half going there down the side of sentencing. So prior to 2015 or maybe 2016, everyone who got caught was charged with attempting to meet a child following sexual grooming. Then the BBC released statistics of groups catching people versus police catching people for that crime. The statistics showed that groups were catching a very large amount of people. I think it was something like 42% or something like that. I forget the number now. But it was a very large percentage of the number of predators being caught with by groups. So then after that, what they decided to do was to split the charges of the people who get caught over a variant of different charges. So instead of it just being attempting to meet a child, you then went from attempting to communicate with a child, sexual communications with a child, and it goes on and on. There's about 6 or 7 different charges now where they lay them onto to keep the statistics lower than the ones for the police. So if the police catch a person, they'll put it through the attempted to meet, where if a group catches a person, they'll spread it out over 5 or 6 different ones. So then when the BBC go back and ask for the statistics of a singular offence, attempting to meet a child following grooming, it looks like the police are doing more work than we are.
Wow.
But the sentencing is weak, and weak at best, sadly, in Newcastle. And that's a sad thing to say, but it's the truth. If some of the people we catch, if they're taken to court anywhere else in the country, they'll go to jail. If they go to court in Newcastle, it's like a personal attack is what it became, because we've took that many people there. The High Court judgment went on there. It is like a personal attack against ourselves and groups like Guardians of the North. When we take people to that court, they're just handing out weak sentences that don't represent the public's opinion whatsoever, or the public interest, just as some sort of like personal attack against us. That's what we feel anyway.
Yeah, I think you wouldn't get any arguments off most of the people watching the show. Certainly wouldn't get any arguments off me. I just genuinely cannot believe how soft the sentences are. If this was in America, these people would be probably looking at life tariffs, never getting out. Life means life, whereas this country, they're basically given a pass and allowed to go out, and all of our children are at risk when these people are on the streets. Lots of questions coming in. Thank you everyone for joining in the debate. Funko Freddy, awful to read this. He says, my 2 nephews have been abused and the police can't do anything until the kids start talking. They were 3 and 4 at the time. I mean, that's awful to hear, isn't it?
It's heartbreak, and it's sadly a common factor where we get hundreds of messages every week, and some of them will be from survivors of abuse and stuff like that, who sadly have little faith in the justice system because they see stuff like what's going on with the sentencing and stuff, like, and I wish I knew what to do to make it better and stronger, but sadly it's just it is what it is until someone finally starts to listen. We've got to deal with what we've got, and it's horrible to have to say that.
Is there a way that we can get people to listen, or is it going to require a strong government or someone strong in government to basically make this ruling and say, look, this needs to be looked at, this needs to be addressed? Is it simply down to the fact that the prisons are bursting at the seams and mismanagement by various governments over the years haven't poured the finances into our policing, into the prisons? I mean, I don't understand why we can't make this decision now.
Well, that's what we need. We need a lot of stuff needs revamping, but a lot of it rotates around money. Like, for example, like you said, the prison systems have been so underfunded, the police have been underfunded and stuff like that. Where, like, for example, we caught a person yesterday when we went into the police station. the officer who came to do the statement. Are you allowed to swear on this channel, by the way?
Yes, you can be, yeah.
Right, okay, just to quote what the copper said, I wish your type wouldn't fucking do this on a Saturday.
Wow.
That's not a problem with us. I mean, we can't predict when a criminal's going to do something. You know, like it's like the police must issue something. So if you're a bank robber, please don't rob a bank unless it's a Monday when we've got a quiet hour between 11 and 12. You know what I mean? It doesn't work like that. We can't predict when these people want to meet. But it all is down to public perception as well of the police. Like the public have lost a lot of faith in the police because of the cuts and because of the justice system. So they're scared to go to the police because they don't believe the CPS will take the case on. And, you know, that we shouldn't live in a society where that's a problem. And we've always got money to go to war. So build more prisons if that's a problem. Get more police officers. Get people who are trained to go online and catch these people.
We had no money to do anything, really. We certainly didn't have any money for the NHS until this COVID outbreak. And then lo and behold, there's a big money tree in Downing Street, and we seem to be getting billions of pounds thrown everywhere, you know, in every single department. So, you know, obviously there is money there when they want it.
Yeah, I mean, but it's just all about keeping the public happy for so long, and then, you know, that's when it'll all change again. But, you know, I wish I knew the answer, but I think it will eventually happen where we get people who run for power with the ideas of wanting to change stuff like this, and not just for monetary gains for the paycheck, if you like, of being an MP.
Yeah. David Shields asked an interesting question. He says, how many females have you managed to snare?
We've only caught one ourselves. Only ever one woman on the Isle of Wight. It's very rare that women grooming in that way of online and stuff. It's hard to explain. There was like a study done by an American doctor, I forget the name now, where it showed like how women's attraction works and stuff like that, different to men, where like when men look at a female partner, regardless of like, you know, like, so if you were looking for a new girlfriend, for example, in the male brain, they reckon that males always think of sex before they think of relationship. So
Yeah.
that's like a key factor in building a relationship, where females think of friendship before they build up a sexual relationship. So it's, you know, I mean, I don't know, I'm not a scientist myself, but, you know, there's some interesting studies on the internet that you can read with regards to stuff like that, but just be prepared to spend like a couple of weeks of your life looking on a screen.
Yeah, Ferry Hill Mag says, name and shame, all of them. If you go to the website, I will keep repeating it tonight because I think it's a great site and it gives you good insight and certainly makes you aware of who some of these people are, because judging by the sentences they got, half of these will be back out in the street doing the same again. Dogjustice.co.uk, get yourself on there. If you want to find out who some of these faces are, then you will be able to find them under closed cases. There's also a link for the database on there, which you can type names into, which is, again, extremely valuable if you want to keep your kids safe. Graham Knox says, without you guys, the police wouldn't even come close to the figures that stand for these repulsive humans that get locked up. Claire Brown says, I manage services in the Northeast caring for adults with LD and brain injuries. A lot of them suffered historical abuse. Guys like you are making a huge difference to vulnerable kids' futures. Heroes. Jason Carter says, great work catching these monsters. Do you get disillusioned with the justice system when the punishment doesn't match the crime? Great question, Jason.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, we've been delusioned with it since 2014. Now it's made one of the, and again, another factor in why we do what we do. It's not fit for purpose when it comes to the sentences that are handed out for the punishment. When, like, I mean, I've always got a story for everything because of stuff I've seen, but in court, and I couldn't believe it, but there was this little old lady in there, and her husband was an alcoholic who used to knock her about a bit. And she didn't declare that he was living there, so she was getting, what do you call it, like a rent paid for her.
All right.
By the state. Mm-hmm. And because she didn't declare him living there over a 3-year period, considering she'd been in hospital 6 times over that 3 years from him beating her up, she didn't declare him living there because he would just leave and then come back. And she couldn't exactly say, get out of my house, because he was physically abusing her. She got 18-month imprisonment. Straight after him, one of our cases was up, got a community order.
Yeah.
And he had child abuse images. Like, you know, so like, if you steal money, you go to jail. If you download images of children, which creates abuse and then creates more abuse by demand, you get a community order. It makes no sense.
I mean, obviously, you catch these people, you hand them over to the police, as your website explains. I mean, you mentioned there you were in court. Is that something you normally do? Do you see the whole thing through? Do you turn up at court on the for the trial and see what these people get?
Yeah, I mean, if it's a trial, we'll guarantee we'll be there. Like there's nothing on the planet that would stop us from giving evidence against these people. Sentences, we try to get to as many as we can, but for security purposes and reasons like that, they're just with regards to certain aspects of what comes with this. We never sort of like say yes or no if we're going to be there. Like we could be there, we could not be there, sort of thing. It's just there. Sadly, when you get people sending you threats of acid attacks and stabbing you and stuff like that there through your page, you've got to take a few precautions in life.
Is that common, Scott? Do you get many of those kind of threats?
Oh, yeah, I've got quite a few over the years. Yeah, threatened to be burnt out, blown up, stabbed, shot. We don't mind. Like we don't mind what they say they're going to do, because that a majority are probably not going to do anything. It's just a lot of trolls and stuff who like to do that stuff. But you can't take things like that with just as it is. You've got to sort of like always have it in the back of your mind. Like, well, what if, sort of thing.
Are these people? Do you think they're related to people who maybe you've put away, or do you think they're paedophiles themselves? I mean, it's a rather odd thing to troll. I mean, I have my fair share of trolls just by speaking about Newcastle United, but nothing to that extreme. And it just seems bizarre to troll someone who's doing us all a bloody big favour.
I mean, there's the difference. There's a few differences. So you've got some who are like family members, and we understand people are going to be angry if one of your family's being caught. You know what I mean? It's inevitable. And then, we've got some people who are just against groups because of some actions and stuff like that there, which again is fine. Everyone's allowed an opinion. We've always welcomed opinions. And then you just get people who are sadly pro sexual intercourse with children. People who support the idea of changing the law to change stuff like, they're the people who are threatened by us because, we're taking people out who could be their resources.
Yeah, exactly. More questions coming in. David Shields again, thanks for your question, mate. He says, how many are reoffenders? Good work, by the way.
Loads of them are reoffenders. Some of ours have even went on to reoffend, where they've escaped jail the first time, caught the second time and been jailed. I mean, a prime example would be Callum Jennings. I have too many names to remember. Callum Jennings, he was caught by us. He was only 18, which a lot of people would be like, oh, he's only 18. He's just, Jack the lad, messing about, boys with boys, all that crap. You get all that all the time. But he went on within months of getting a suspended sentence. And bearing in mind, the judge turned around to him and said, he's only young. I doubt I will ever see him in front of the courts again. He's made a mistake. Within months, he was back online and he was using an app to groom a real child. Luckily, the child's mother had seen our post about him prior, so knew who he was. He was arrested and then he was later jailed. And he's just been jailed again lately. So he's repeated 3 times. We've got some who went on to do 3 times, 2 times, and a lot of people that we've caught have been already previous offenders. Some as far as rapists, some serious child sex abusers.
Paul Oxley says, which region has the highest rate of predators? Newcastle, Sunderland, or Middlesbrough?
It depends on what you look at. Like on statistical side, if you were looking at groups, you've got to think like the Newcastle and Sunderland. You've got like us in Newcastle, you've got Guardians of the North in Sunderland. So a lot of people do get caught in Newcastle, and that gets us a bit of a bad reputation that, Newcastle must be full of paedophiles and stuff. But the problem's worldwide. There's no sort of like one place is worse than the other for these people. It could be from everywhere, from the city of London to, the deserts in America and stuff. It just depends on the the population of the people that are there. You know, if there's loads and loads of people, guaranteed there's going to be sex offenders amongst them.
Couple that we've spoken about already. You mentioned, they've come from, I think you mentioned once, you said the Isle of Wight. The other guy who came up and slept in his car on the quayside. I mean, it seems that, these predators will go to extreme lengths, to fulfill their fantasies. And traveling doesn't seem to be, an issue. Is that the case with a lot of these people you've caught that haven't been local, they've been from out of town?
So quite a few have been from out of town, but for example, if they won't travel up to us, myself and Joe from Guardians of the North, like we'll go on road trips and go to the areas where we've got addresses for these people and ring the police in them areas so we know that it's getting acted on. So we won't just hand the case in. For example, if the woman on the Isle of Wight, we actually travelled from Newcastle with Guardians of the North to the Isle of Wight to get her, sort of thing. So, if they don't come to us, then we will go to them and make sure that they are arrested in their area, sort of thing. But sadly, a lot have travelled very far. Like one came from Wales all the way down in southern Wales and stuff like that. There's no distance that these people won't travel to get what they want.
Tell us a little bit about another one of the cases. What I'm particularly interested in, because I've been around. I'm in Newcastle over the years, and obviously one of the things I used to do was manage a Sunday football team. And David Hanson cropped up on the internet when I was looking at your page one day. David Hanson used to be a referee in the Gateshead District League, and I used to manage Felon Football Club in that league. He was one of your closed cases. Tell us a little bit about that one. He was quite famous as well for something he did on camera.
Yeah. Callum, you can thank Callum for that footage, because he just, like we say, confronted him, and he just literally his arse dropped out, and he passed out twice. It doesn't show it on the camera twice, but it happened twice. And while I'm like thinking, fucking hell, what's going on? Callum's sort of like zooming in with the camera, trying to get the best focus and stuff like that. I was like, what the fuck are you doing? But it's crazy things like that have happened. And, he asked to join us in the video, saying, can I join you? It's like, well, no, you've just been caught by us. Like, I mean, you wouldn't exactly fit the criteria of someone who's trying to stop these people by being one of these people. And then he blamed us for losing his job, but he lost his job for saying Raoul Moat was his hero. And, he tried to blame us for losing his job.
Wow. Unbelievable. I mean, it's a strange case, that one. And yeah, I mean, he was involved in, as I say, Sunday football as a referee. But yeah, again, get yourself onto Dark Justice's website, darkjustice.co.uk. Click on the closed cases and you can read, all about these people and put a name to the face as well. Graham Knox says, my grandparents used to use Peter Vorsey Smith when he was between the ages of 14 and 16. I wish you guys were about in them days. It would have saved that poor lass being snatched out of our. Yes, I remember that case. Luke Terry says, keep up the good work. Unknown says, someone very close to me, 3 years old, got touched. I spoke to cops, said nothing they could do. The witness got ignored. Years later, the culprit was caught on video turning up to meet a minor. So lots of these things coming out as we speak. Claire Brown, one of our daughters who was 17, used to call one of her teachers a pedo, and we would just laugh thinking she'd been dramatic. He got locked up last year for child porn and abuse. Can we trust anyone? It does feel like that, doesn't it? I mean, when we're speaking tonight, and people look through your website, it will feel like, my God. But is it a massive problem, Scott? Is it a problem that we should be more concerned about? We should be pushing for change?
Yeah, I mean, we should all strive for change in anything that we feel is incorrect in our society, because, we are what makes our society better. So, if we just sit back and assume everyone else is going to do it, it'll never get done. You've got a voice and you've got a vote. And that's what we say to all of our supporters when they ask, what can we do to help you? They already help by liking the page or something like that, because that scares the people at the top, because that's numbers, they're people to them. So their votes, their voices and stuff like that, and speaking out. But on the other factor of not trusting anyone, I think a lot of people are sort of it's like when you see groups who name and shame straight away, we feel it sometimes can cause like a false sense of security. So say one's caught in your street, you then feel safer because you know who that one is.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that there isn't others in your street. And that's what you should always remember. It's not about knowing who that one is. It's about protecting your children and yourself against the potential threat that anyone could be one. So like, it sounds like I'm saying, oh, build a wall and circle, but it's not just being about being alert to the surroundings, to the people who live near you, to the people in your street, to the people in your town. It's you can't just look at a person and say, oh, I think this person's, a paedophile lives next door, because that's not how it works. It could be the least expected person. We've caught, like I said, an 18-year-old who's went on to offend 3 times. People always assume, oh, well, he's young, he's dumb, he's stupid, but how I see it is, all of these people, even when they're 60 years old, have been 18 once. Just because they're getting caught at a young age doesn't mean they haven't started already developing them thoughts of wanting to go on to abuse. So, how I say is just be vigilant against anyone and everything, because, you just never know. And if you're wrong, so what? You did the right thing protecting your children.
Paul Oxley says, how do you switch off with some of the stuff that these predators send you?
You don't, like, it's I mean, I'm not ashamed to admit it, but I've had nightmares probably every single night since 2014, since doing this, like, just constant dreams of horrible messages that go on and on and on. But it is what it is. Just, you've got to try and find ways to chill out and do things that make you, just sort of step back away from it, because if you stayed in it forever, you would lose your mind. So, we do things where we'll chill out, we'll have a bite to eat or something, me and my mate, we'll watch the football. Obviously, when Newcastle win, it's a lot better, but, if the night, it's just sort of like you've got to continue, and you use the pain that you feel from the previous ones to keep you moving forward, because every time you're seeing them messages and your brain's being destroyed as an adult, a child's not getting destroyed. It's not a child seeing them messages. So it's sort of like, we can take all of that pain and anger and keep it inside. Okay, one day it's probably going to mess us both up, but, we're fully grown up. So I don't know, it's not saying that we can deal with it better, it's just that we prefer us to have it and not children to have that pain and suffering.
Fair enough. Graham Knox says, have you managed to get many school teachers?
Previous school teachers, yeah. We had one, which was David Curran. And he had thousands and thousands of adult pornography, but he also had, I think it was about 3,000 child abuse images as well. And he was one of the first cases that ever got a suspended sentence, which made no sense to us, because, ex-teacher, child abuse images, and turn up to meet a child. I don't know, it's a weird one, but yeah, ex-teachers, I mean, guardians have caught the mayor of Peterlee at one point, but they come from all walks of life. We've had people who've been in £100,000 plus a year jobs and stuff who we've caught.
Monica Slack says, well done, keep up the good work. Why no one considers starting using chemical castration? I mean, do you think that would make a difference? I mean, I've seen that kind of thing mentioned before. It's highly unlikely in this country. I mean, we had the death penalty up until Ruth Ellis, got the chop, and then, we've been, going backwards ever since. And, prison sentences are getting less and less. The prisons are getting full. And as this program shows tonight, paedophiles are getting off lightly. So chemical castration is unlikely. But do you think that kind of thing would help, Scott?
I mean, I know there's some studies on it and stuff like that can show it can work, but it's sort of like voluntary chemical castration, where they, they've sort of agreed to it, but you never know how much it's going to work. And when you look at the cost of the medication, because I believe they use the same medication to treat prostate cancer to do it, and it's very sketchy on the studies that have been done. Some say that it can work, where some say that it's more, if this person's released and not monitored to be taking this medication, it's easily avoidable sort of thing. So, you know, there's, yes, okay, it might work, but it'll only work if the people agree to work with the medication, which, you know, these people might not agree to work with the medication. Therefore, you're back at stage one again, you know, and what do you do then when they refuse to take the medication? Because you can't force them to. And all the studies that have been done have mainly been voluntary ones.
Okay. Paul Oxley says, do you think the phone companies need to clamp down on some of the sites that the kids have easy access to, i.e. Snapchat, Instagram, etc.? My daughters both have access to certain sites. My youngest doesn't have access to Snapchat, etc., but my eldest certainly over the years has adapted to social media and had Snapchat and Instagram, etc. And we had a case. I mean, before you answer that question, we had a case a couple of years ago where my daughter was in year 7 and her and her friends were being approached by an Asian guy. It looked as if he wasn't in this country, I've got to be perfectly honest, but you know, he was, you know, quite happy to get his cock out and basically, you know, take photographs of it. He was sending it to the different kids in the class. We reported it to the school that a lot of the girls were being approached by this guy. They did nothing about it. We then, you know, my missus then got on to the police. She spoke to the police. We had images of this guy. We had his account details. We passed that on to the police, and the police did get back to us, and then did nothing. It was passed from one officer to another, and then nothing happened. Now, this guy looked as if he was abroad, it has to be said. But the simple fact of the matter for me was, what if he wasn't? What if he lived in Newcastle? What if he was accessible and he could have met up with any one of those girls at the school, my daughter, anybody's daughter at the school, and, you know, carried out whatever he wanted to carry out? For me, that was a damning indictment on behalf of the police. They didn't act. You know what I mean? I got a couple of emails backwards and forwards, and that was it. And it was passed from pillar to post. I got one email saying that the police were going, the particular officer who was dealing with the case was going on holiday. And then I never heard anything back. And that really concerned me because, you know, I just felt that they didn't give that enough time and attention. And I thought it was very important. And the fact that it wasn't just one person, numerous girls who'd been approached, you know. So Paul's question, and, you know, do you think that the phone companies need to clamp down on some of these sites, Scott?
It's not so much the sorry about that, the phone companies themselves. It's more the people who own these applications. So, for example, with what your case where you went to the police with the person sending to your daughter and the other schoolgirls. So, for them to get information from Snapchat and Instagram and Facebook and stuff, they've got to make a request to the American authorities. Now, because all these companies are American owned, the chances of the police actually getting the information from them is nigh on impossible in a timely manner. So they can be going through loophole of American law to protect these people, instead of just saying, you know, let's have what I would personally like to see would be a worldwide agreement that if there is a problem, a terrorist problem, a drug problem, a child problem like that on any of these apps, when the police ask for it, they're giving it within 24 hours. Now, someone like Facebook, because they own Instagram as well, if people don't know that Facebook own Instagram, they could easily hire the staff to do that, to handle the police making a request and them getting that information to the police in a timely manner where they can track down, because they hold all the IP addresses, the old geolocations, everything like that. So it's more falls on the apps to do better and to promote certain aspects of the app. For example, not many people know it, but on Facebook, if you shake your phone when you see something that you don't agree with, you can report it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you tell people like that, then like half the people don't even know that exists because it's never promoted. They don't show how these things can be reported and how stuff can be done for safety. And then on the other aspect of it, it's more education in schools where, you know, children need to be made aware of the harsh realities of the internet. And it might be the greatest thing ever invented in mankind, but also one of the worst things that's ever been invented. You know, it's brought us closer together, but at the same time, it's disconnected us from the reality that these people you're speaking to are real. These people you're speaking to could live near you. These people you're speaking to could hurt you, could want to kill you, could want to abuse you. You know, that needs to be drilled back in. You know, you wouldn't let your child just run across a road. You know, so why would you let them go on the internet without understanding the risk?
100%, yeah. Maybe it's the adults, you know, who need to be educated more than the kids. You know, sadly, you know, not everyone is a diligent parent. You know, and some are just left to get out to their own devices on their own devices. So, you know, yeah, it's awful to hear that. Ferry Hill Mags, he sent another question. He says, "Do you work with a similar group called Cost? They have caught people close to our village." I'll let you answer that. And then I want to ask you about copycats. You mentioned Guardians of the North, people who, you know, people again who do a similar job to you, if you like. You know, how have you found the copycat side of things? People coming in and doing similar jobs, has that helped you or hindered you? And answer Ferry Hill Mags' question first.
Yeah, we haven't worked with Cost Child Online Safety Team. I understand they've got some issues going on at the moment. I can't speak about because it's not my thing, but it's like a legal thing they've got ongoing. And I know a lot of people use the term like copycats and stuff, but I think it's more these people have just sort of stepped up to do it. And like I've always said, like my hat goes off to anyone who stands up to fight this problem. You know, like how I see it is we're not just like, we might all have individual names for groups and all that, but we're all soldiers who are fighting. You know, we're all fighting for the same battle. Well, we should be fighting for the same battle, and that is for the children. And you know, like I know a lot of people see it as like a copycat thing and that, but it's not something that I see it as. I see it more like, you know, we're all soldiers fighting the same battle. We just have different regiments, if you like.
Yeah, that's fine. That's great. Yeah, I mean, it clears it up as well because I've seen it, you know, suggested on other on you know, social media, etc. These are copycats. I've seen it happens in all walks of life. You get jealousy.
Yeah.
People, you know, people who are in this for the right reason, and you get people who are in it for the wrong reason. And I've seen it happen with, you know, not necessarily in the northeast, but other parts of the country where there seems to be people attacking other people's groups, and that is the reason why, you know. And it's awful to see, really, but good to hear that it hasn't happened in the northeast.
Yeah, I mean it's never been a problem up here. I mean we've had a few groups up here in the past and stuff where they've, you know, they've stayed around a bit and some have left and stuff like that. But it's like, I mean, like there's certain aspects of things that I might never agree with, like lives and stuff like that. But I will always agree with the capture of someone who was going to harm a child. So like I might not agree with certain methods of how it's done, but that's not because I'm against them people or against, you know, what they're doing. It's just, that's just my opinion, because I've spent almost 6 years fighting the same argument sort of thing, you know what I mean? Where it's just an argument on my side of it. I might be wrong, you know what I mean? I might not be right. They might be right. And that's why I always say, don't judge the actions of them for that one aspect of something that you don't like. I judge them on the fact that if they catch someone, hats off to you. I think you're an absolute legend. You know what I mean? Like, to people who catch someone, that's my opinion on it. You know, in my heart, these people are great because they're stopping their child from getting hurt.
Why don't you like lives? And just out of interest, I've seen a lot of groups do that. You know, it always starts with somebody's phone face towards their feet and moving foot, you know, moving feet, and then bang, you know, you're in the middle of a live apprehension. Why don't you like that?
I think it was when we first started, we agreed upon holding until conviction, and Alive goes against sort of that argument that we created at the beginning, then we've stuck to from day one. So it's not so much that I disagree with the reasoning behind why some people do it. It's just more I disagree with it because it's not the method how I would do it, and there's certain aspects of it that, you know, have caused some major issues for every group in the country and brought unwanted attention to every group in the country where, you know, like it's being used, lives have been used as evidence against the people catching the offender. like for assaults and stuff like that. There, obviously, I'm not saying that we assault them on camera because I was all filmed. It's always filmed and handed in fully unedited. But then you've got like children could accidentally be shot. The house could be shot. The wife could come out screaming. It's stuff like that there where you've got to remember, like, these are the people only had the only thing they're guilty of is being a friend or a family of this person. So and then you've got the false sense of security side of it, where everyone feels safe because the nonce of the village is being caught, blah blah blah, and then they let all the children out, not worried because he's being caught, so they don't need to worry anymore. But it doesn't do anything for the other 60 that could live in your village, the other 600 that could live in your town, or the other 6,000 that could live in your city. You know what I mean? It's like a false sense of security. But like I say, I could be wrong. I could just be blowing my own whistle because that's the way that I do it, sort of thing. And I've always, like I've said, I don't judge them for that. I just don't agree with that action. That's all. It's not like I'm not going to say, oh well, I hate you because you do it like that. I just don't agree with that, with that being the correct way to do it, because then you open yourself up to a can of worms of all it's going to take is a barrister who knows his stuff to come across one day, and it's going to cause mayhem throughout their community of when they go live, and that's something that ultimately they're going to have to put their hands up to if that day does ever come.
Jason Riley says, could I set something up with a criminal record for violence?
In what way? Does has he got a criminal record for violence?
He has a criminal record for violence, but he's could he set up something similar to dark justice? I think that was the question he was asking.
I mean, personally, and this is not anything against him because I don't know him, but I would never have anyone work alongside me in doing this with the criminal record, because of the fact that you've got to give evidence at trials and stuff like that there, where they might try and use your criminal past against you, sort of thing, to like score brownie points with a jury, or well, you've committed a serious attack, or someone might have committed fraud, so then they can use it as like a deception sort of thing like that. And it's like, obviously myself and Callum, we both known each other for years. We're both full clean DBS checked where we see each other's, you know what I mean? It's like before we start, we look at each other's records and stuff, and there's not there. But I could be wrong. I would sit with a solicitor and ask them the likelihood of your history being brought up in court and stuff like that, because the last thing you want to do is put all that effort into catching someone, it going to court, him going not guilty, and then them turn around and go, well, you've got a criminal past. How do we know that you're telling the truth with regards to the chat and what happened and all this stuff? Or all they've got to do is turn around and say, well, he assaulted me, and it's not on camera. You've got a previous for assaulting someone. You can get yourself in trouble again, and you've got to look at every aspect of it to weigh up the pros and the cons.
You find that the attitude of the police and the judges has changed towards you since you started off all those years ago?
Yeah, some of the judges and barristers and stuff, they're canny people. Some of them are a bit like normal people, I guess. They've still got the money and the lordship and your honor and all that stuff going behind them and stuff. But some of them can be okay, but it's like some of them, it's like they're getting orders from higher up to just be weak with the sentencing and stuff like that. That's what it feels like at times, where you can see it in the face that they don't want to give the sentence they are, but it's like they've been given no choice but to give that sentence, and because of the council guidelines and stuff like that there. So, but the police, some are okay. It's mainly the beat police officers that love it. And any police force in the country that says that their front force don't love it need to wake up and get out of the desk and realise that, the Bobby on the beat is just like everybody else. It's mainly the ones who, when you get higher up behind desks and stuff like that, there who don't like it. But then saying again, I've met agents from the National Crime Agency who love it on first name terms with a couple of them, you know what I mean, who've walk into a room when I've seen them 2.5 years later, they come out of a court to come and shake my hand because they know I was in the building. Because they love what we do, and they agree with what we're doing because of the reasoning behind why we do it.
It's interesting that you say about the judges that it's almost as if, they're getting instructions from high above. There's a wonderful documentary film made by Sonia Poulton called Paedophiles in Parliament. Well worth a watch. Certainly will open people's eyes a little bit about what you've just mentioned there. And there appears to be something rotten at the core of British society. That's my feeling on it. You know what I mean?
Definitely. I mean, I'm sorry to interrupt, but Joe from Guardians of the North was literally sat in a courtroom where the judge turned around and said, "I would like to have sent you to court, but from above, I've got to give you this." I mean, who's higher than a judge in a courtroom? You know what I mean? He literally said it in a public, open court, and it's like, in a courtroom, the judge should have the final say, and what the final say is what the judge gives them, you know what I mean? And it's like when they're getting told from above to give them X, Y, Z and that, it's like, well, who are these people above? Because I would love the names so we could look them up and see what their history's like.
Yeah. I think this problem is a lot deeper than we understand and we know. I'm going to have Sonia Poulton on the show, very, very soon. We'll be talking about a lot of things, including this. And, who knows, maybe in the future I might be able to get, Sonia and yourself on the show at the same time. Worst case that you've worked on, Scott? Most case?
Paul Middleton. It's mad because I can pretty much remember the names of every single one of them, but yeah, Paul Middleton's the one that it's got like a mental burn in my brain that'll always stay there, and that's just because he was on about if the children he'd abused and then sent child abuse images to me. So I obviously had to give my phone straight to the police. He was arrested the next day, but when they raided him, they found a little black book in his work pickup. And it had like stuff like, I can't quote it 100% because it's very vile, but something like Samantha, age 9, nice bald, and then I can't really say the rest because it makes us feel sick just even thinking about it.
Unbelievable. I mean, and people, as I say, get on the website, darkjustice.co.uk, closed cases. The lads have been very specific with what they put on there as well. And if you click on the images, you can actually go through some of the content that was sent to the guys on the phone. So some of those messages are on there. And I've got to be honest, when you read it, it's heartbreaking and disturbing to see, that. And I think what's very good about the website, it's a basic website, but it puts the names up, it puts the faces up, it tells you that these people sometimes have, been caught again. It highlights just the deficiency we've got in the system. Graham Knox has suggested tonight that we put on Twitter hashtag Children's Lives Matter. I think that's a great idea. We've had 70 people watching. I think if you can all get onto Twitter and stick that up there and stick a link up to the show and tag, Dark Justice in it, I think it would be great, because I think the more people that know about Dark Justice, the better. I mean, they've done remarkably well over the last 6 years to raise their profile anyway, but unfortunately, a lot of the media won't do interviews with Scott, or paedophile hunters in general, because they don't feel that they can interview you, Scott. And that's disturbing in itself, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, some are okay, but some just won't touch it because they're worried about the backlash. Some are literally that scared of the crap they'll get from whoever these higher up bunches are, that they're scared to do interviews. For example, like Guardians of the North, the guy who runs that, Joe, he's started a petition where if people signed it, it would make it mandatory for people who are caught to go to jail. But no press will touch that. No press will jump on that unless it virals. No one will go on it, sort of thing. And it's stuff like that there. But if we was to release a video, they're all over it. The Daily Mail would be all over something like that because it's clicks for them. But it just doesn't. And it's like you're trying to get change, but the avenues you go down, sadly, everything like stuff with yourself and Neil, it's like it's hard to get anything done where you can just go to someone and say, I want to do this. How could you help me make this happen? You know, like, you know yourself with Neil, if you go to Neil and say, I need to do this, how can I make this happen?
Yeah.
He'll know how you can make it happen, sort of thing.
Yeah, it's me, Neil Jackson from Media Art, who does a lot of our video, and once we can get back out on the road, we will be, you know, hopefully taking these shows to a new level. Any messages that you've got, you know, for anybody watching tonight, just before we finish, Scott?
Just check all your children's devices, sit down with them. You know, if you've got that time, have a little explanation with them about these type of things and with regards to online safety, because if the police and the schools are failing, then, you know, it's our job as people and parents to step in and, you know, do what we need to do to try and keep them safe. And just thank you to everyone who's watching. Don't forget to share it and stuff, so other people can, you know, see what's being said and, well, hear what's being said, and hopefully they learn something from it, or makes them research something more to the point of where they get a better understanding of what it is that goes on.
Great stuff, Scott. It's been an absolute pleasure. And if you want to know a lot more about Dark Justice, I've given them a name check all the way through the night. darkjustice.co.uk is the website. They do have social media as well. They're on Twitter at darkjustice_, and just type in Dark Justice on Facebook as well. Give the lads a follow. And I think it's a great show by Graham Knox tonight. Hashtag Children's Lives Matter. You know, we're not trying to rain on the parade of any other campaigns that are ongoing at the minute, but I just think, you know, the least we can do is just raise a little bit of awareness. And yeah, please, you know, like this video, share it, leave your comments underneath. You know, and if you're new to the channel, please subscribe to the channel. We are going to be doing a lot more stuff like this, as well as the Newcastle United stuff, because as Scott already admitted, he's a Newcastle fan as well, and takeovers matter. So I'm going to continue doing the Newcastle United interviews as well. But I enjoy talking about other stuff. Scott, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I'm sure we'll get you back on again at some point. Keep up the good work, and I hope to speak to you soon, Scott.
Yeah, you as well, mate. And takeovers do matter. Let's just hope one happens soon, because if Ashley doesn't go, there'll be trouble.
Take care, mate. Thanks very much for coming on.
Cheers, mate. Thanks a lot.
Great to have Scott on from Dark Justice. As I say, fantastic. Thanks for all your kind comments. Lovely to see you all responding the way that I hoped you would. Some great questions as well. I will be back tomorrow night with an interview with former Newcastle United goalkeeper Martin Thomas, who of course played in the 1980s. But thanks for watching. Give it a like, give it a share, and please subscribe.